So here's the deal. I'm gonna play some video games, I'm gonna benchmark some processors, and you're gonna watch. That's how this works, right?
This video is brought to you by Privacy.com. Privacy.com protects your identity and bank information on the internet by letting you shop online using virtual cards instead of real ones. AMD's Zen 2 or Ryzen 3000 line of processors are honestly quite incredible for the price. I've already covered the 3600 and 3600X, which provide great value for your money, and today I'm covering the next two tiers up, the Ryzen 7 3700X and the Ryzen 9 3900X. One of these will be quick and easy, the other has a few small quirks. I'm going to skip a lot of the lower tier testing from my 3600X review as it's all doable on both of these CPUs, and I don't like giving being redundant in videos. And there's great optimization tips in that video as well. So maybe check it out even if you already have a 3700X and 3900X instead. I'll include time codes on screen and in the description if you want to skip the bits you've already heard. Thankfully, I get a small break in my CPU benchmarking moving forward as the 3950X seems to be taking its sweet time to come out. I'll have another video coming soon on performance numbers for these CPUs in video production tasks soon as well, so stay tuned for that. With, the subscribe button. I'm EposVox and welcome back to StreamGuides. Guides for your stream. My tests were done on the Ryzen 7 3700X and Ryzen 9 3900X sent for review by AMD. They are not paying for this review, seeing it before it is posted, nor sponsoring the video in any way. I have the processors installed on the ASUS Crosshair 8 motherboard, which I'm actually liking quite a bit more than the X570 Ti in a few ways. Notably, the fact that I don't have to pull the entire massive heat plate off of the motherboard in order to swap NVMe drives, just little heat spreaders, and there's plenty of component cooling and no obnoxious backplate, so yeah. And the chipset fan is pretty quiet as well. The CPUs are cooled by the dual fan Noctua NH-U12A, which is doing a great job of keeping them cool under load without getting loud. Also, as Wendell noted in the Ryzen 3000 cooling video here, the heat pipe layout is actually very well optimized for the Ryzen 3000 chips and chiplet layout. I love these little coolers. For GPU, I'm still using my RTX 2080 Founders Edition. It's from my gaming rig, it's all I can spare for these test benches. I'm finally replacing my crappy test bench in an upcoming video as well. For my performance tests, I set up OBS with either a 720p or 1080p canvas with a couple extras, and primarily tested at 6 megabits per second at 1080p using X264 encoder on fast, medium, slow CPU usage presets, as well as my secret sauce or Vox config settings covered in this video here, and then at 720p on slow and slow with my Vox config settings. The games were running full screen at 2560 by 1440 at 120 Hz refresh rate. This is a median format of people who come to me asking for help, but is a higher resolution than what most streamers are actually using. The most common resolution is 1080p or similar. But the advantage here is that by validating performance based on running at 1440p, anyone running lower than this will have similar or better results. But this is where many streaming reviews fall short. I didn't just include gameplay in my OBS scenes. Few people are actually doing that, few people are only streaming gameplay, and those who do aren't likely to net many followers while doing so. Instead, I also added on a face cam using the AverMedia PW313 live stream webcam, review soon, on default settings, and my usual animated webcam frame and recent follower and tipper feed bars. These are on a loop, and everything is consistent between tests. I didn't bother with the text or anything like that. I felt that this was a good enough scene configuration to closely simulate a proper streaming setup. Too many people test their streams with just gameplay and then switch to a full live streaming layout, and the performance is significantly different. This kind of addresses that. Also, while this is a Windows image made specifically for this benchmarking purpose, I didn't want to keep it totally vanilla, as that's also not representative of streaming setups either. So I had the Stream Deck running with a Hardware Info 64 graphs and controls for my benchmarking process, as well as the GoXLR app and services for audio. I'm going to go on and just start with the 3900X, because this thing is a beast. Seriously, it can stream anything, even stuff that I didn't think could be streamed very well on a single PC. Apex, PUBG, Black Ops 4, Fortnite, Overwatch, Minecraft, Dota 2, Tekken 7, Rocket League, CSGO, they could all be streamed at 1080p 60 FPS on slow X264 settings with basically no issue. I'd still recommend medium or my Vox config, detailed in the video linked below for PUBG, Overwatch, and Tekken, to be safe, but overall my testing was made easy and it could just handle it. I also tested thread limiting x264 to 18 threads, like I do on my i9 for 720p slow with the Vox config, and that worked in Apex and CSGO, but some other games had some hiccups. You don't need to thread manage here, especially for 1080p. If you're using this as a dedicated streaming PC for console or for some reason another gaming PC, it can do 1080p 60 on slow. It can also do 1440p 60 on medium, and it can almost do 4K 60 at very fast. But it struggles a little too consistently for me to recommend that. This may seem a little silly to test, but things are pushing further and further, and if people think that streaming at 1080p 60 FPS at 6 megabits per second to Twitch is fine, then there will be people who want to utilize Mixer's 10 megabits per second cap to stream 1440p or higher. I thought I'd really push my luck, and I tried 720p 60 on slower, but while it dropped a low percentage of frames, it was consistent intermittent bursts of drops and would be a poor viewing experience for your fans. But overall, this CPU is insane and streams better than I could possibly imagine, especially for a not HEDT setup. Something you might also notice on these charts is that much of the render lag you saw or I addressed in the 3600X video has sort of disappeared. Granted, I'm still using specific optimizations to prevent this. OBS Preview has been disabled as the mismatched refresh rates is still an issue on this. I've also still frame limited some games. Fortnite and PUBG, I was able to increase the frame limit to 120 FPS as the CPU has enough headroom for them to run a little more freely. Overall, render lag can still be a problem since it is GPU based, but it's a balance of some games needing both CPU and GPU to carry the load, and more CPU power can make the difference in being able to stream. Plus, those Windows 10 1903 patches are really doing some good work here. A lot of the streaming was not possible even on my i9 and a 1080 Ti just a couple years ago. This CPU is so powerful that, among other reasons, I think I might be switching from my 7980XE to this. Video on that soon if it turns out. Before we get to our next CPU, let's hear a little bit more from our sponsor. This is one that I really appreciate working with as it's a great service. And when you're shopping online for something like this, I recommend using privacy.com. Data breaches are a dime a dozen these days, no pun intended, and one of my best buddies just lost like $200 to an account getting compromised on one of the websites that had a data leak, and this has happened to me in the past, and it's really frustrating. But by using privacy.com to mask your payment information and use their super fast virtual card creator, once your account is set up, make a virtual card, set a nickname for it, such as Steam Games, set a limit either monthly to restrict your spending so you don't spend too much, or total so that no one can ever overcharge you for something that you did not intend to purchase, and then use it to make your purchases online without giving out your real payment information. Then, if you wish, you can just actually close your card outright after you've made your purchase so that it could never be used again, even if that information is leaked. Head to privacy.com/EposVox and sign up for an account, and as a special treat for my viewers, new customers will automatically get $5 to spend on your first purchase for a limited time only. Yep, free money. Can't go wrong there. Go to privacy.com/EposVox and sign up now. Privacy! Sign up now. Do it! Let's talk about the middle child, the Ryzen 7 3700X. This is still an insane CPU and would have been a dream come true just a year or two ago, but it's not quite as free-flowing, stream all the things as its bigger brother is. For the most part, across all games, 1080p 60 medium streaming is a surefire thing. Sometimes 1080p 60 slow is as well, but frequently that causes bad frame pacing issues in the game, as I discussed in the last video, causing stutter and input lag. PUBG could be streamed on slow with no problems in the stream, but heavy impact on frame times. So stick to medium, or if you stick to 720p slow with my Vox config, there's no impact on frame times at all. Apex Legends can mostly do slow if you frame limit to 60 to mitigate render lag, and it can certainly stream on medium. For whatever reason, only on this CPU, I had a lot of trouble getting OBS to hook the game. Every time I changed a setting, I had to reboot or I'd get a black screen. This is really weird, but just worth noting in case anyone else encounters it. Fortnite needed to be capped to 60 FPS again, but could be streamed at 1080p on slow. Black Ops 4 was fine to stream on 1080p 60 medium, but my Vox config and slow had bad frame pacing. 720p slow with the Vox config was fine. Overwatch had bad frame pacing at 1080p 60 slow, but frame limited to 120 FPS, but was fine in all other modes. Minecraft had terrible frame pacing at 1080p slow, but my Minecraft test is specifically overcranking the CPU by flying through newly generated chunks. For slow, it's still not feasible, but at medium, normal gameplay would be perfectly fine. Dota 2 could be streamed on slow with no issues. This was a viewer request, though I'm horrible at the game, and that was a miserable experience. Tekken 7 had some hitches at 1080p medium with my Vox config, but it had 1 or 2 hitches at 1080p 60 slow. I'm highlighting this because this is frequently considered not an option for fighting games, but it was perfectly fine at 1080p medium, so there you go. Rocket League had hitching at 1080p 60 on slow, but was great at medium and with my Vox config. CSGO was great at everything except 1080p 60 slow, while there was some bad frame pacing. If you want to use the 3700X and a dedicated streaming PC, 1080p 60 slow was fine, but 4K very fast, 1440p medium, and 720p slower were all not usable. Wah wah. I mentioned frame capping your games. This is due to some GPU allocation issues that I already explained pretty well last time, so listen to that for a second if you haven't heard it already. Something that I was constantly battling up against here, something that I've run into for years, and I have a salty FAQ rant style video about here linked in the description below, is the issue of limited GPU resources. But I did finally utilize and confirm a specific fix, which is obvious and I have suggested before myself, that made this setup work here. To sum it up briefly, you only have a finite amount of processing power on your graphics card, just like a processor. The amount of power is used by both your game that you're playing and OBS itself. OBS uses the same processing power as your games to composite and render your scene that it streams, your gameplay plus your face cam plus etc. This is inherent to how OBS works and cannot be avoided. To remove this would be to prevent you at all from being able to stream anything but your gameplay as a source, and you won't even be able to change the scale of it or anything like that. Windows 10 has typically done a bad job of managing this and allowing programs to compete with one another. So while your game is using 80% or more of your graphics card and OBS tries to claim another 20% or more, they both suffer. But OBS's performance is the most problematic. You start to lose frames without any obvious reason why. In the Windows 10 1903 update, this situation has improved quite a bit for those gaming at 1080p. Enabling game mode, yes, that's counterintuitive, but turning it on, Windows is now able to allow OBS to reserve some resources that it needs, and it's generally not a problem. However, at 1440p at a high refresh rate and at 4K, it's still an issue. It's being worked on, but slowly. The obvious fixes are to reduce your GPU usage, so lowering your game settings or resolution, limiting your game's frame rate to 60 or 120 FPS, lowering your OBS canvas to 720p, and so on. However, for some games, like Apex Legends in my case, this isn't enough, especially given that my monitors are of mismatched refresh rates. The monitor I'm gaming on is 120Hz, and the monitor that OBS is on is 60Hz. This meant that even though I could get Apex Legends down to only 50% of the GPU on its own by lowering settings and such, having OBS running and was pushing that to 100% and then still losing frames. There is a confirmed bug in the way that the Windows Desktop Window Manager, or DWM, handles different refresh rates when OBS's preview is going that causes this to go out of control and cause performance problems. So the saving grace for this setup was disabling the preview. This sucks, as I regularly monitor my preview while I'm live streaming, but it's a necessary evil. That being said, I still had to frame cap certain games, including Apex Legends, and we'll touch on this in a little bit. And again, none of this really has anything to do with the CPU specifically. This isn't a Ryzen 3600X problem. This affects everything. But I've made recommendations of processors before, and then people run into these GPU limited scenarios and think the processor is the problem. This is something that you have to deal with whether you're on the 3600X, 3900X, or my 18-core i9-7980XE. It's fun. Overall, the 3700X is a fantastic CPU and probably a much better value per dollar for game streaming scenarios, but it's really hard to argue with the 3900X's ability to stream pretty much anything without question or without fine-tuning. Do keep in mind that the slow and medium X264 presets at 1080p will run your CPUs at max speed and require some serious cooling. I was using this with the Noctua NHU12A with a thermal pad IC Graphite instead of thermal compound, because when I'm swapping CPUs 3 or more times per day, redoing paste is just not gonna happen. So while CPUs weren't overheating, I was leaving some boost clocks on the table due to temperatures. So if you actually use paste with your cooler, you might see slightly improved performance over what I show here, and some of the quirks might even be slightly smoothed out as AMD fixes PBO at the end of the month. The goal with these stream guides is to make videos that make sure that you have the tools available to get the CPU working for you and make your stream run very smoothly. All the usual optimizations apply. Frame cap when needed, disable the OBS preview if you have mismatched refresh rate monitors, maybe stick with 720p if you want, the best quality per bitrate and to make sure you have no issues, everything in my previous videos. The X570 ASUS Crosshair 8 motherboard is a great motherboard that I recommend you checking out. As always, product links I have for everything discussed here will be linked below. I finally have a Newegg affiliate link working if you're wanting to shop there. It's been gone for a while. I hope this answers most of your questions you have about the Ryzen 3700X and 3900X for streaming. If you have more, I would consider joining the Inner Circle on Floatplane, where you get early access to a special chat in our Discord server, behind the scenes content, and early access to videos just like this one. Like the video, subscribe, do all the social things, and keep an eye out for more exciting announcements from StreamGuides. I'm EposVox. I'll see you next time. Hopefully this video is in focus this time after my Discord video was not. I'm using a 50mm T1.5 lens and wirelessly focus pulling, but all I have to do is move with that tiny plane of focus. I have no idea if it was in focus. Focus! I don't know.